All right, ladies and gentlemen, as it's 1:30 p.m., I'd like to call the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting to order. Jared, if you could help me, actually, let me back up. I'd like to start with introductions and then we will confirm that we have a quorum to proceed. This is a hybrid meeting. I will start with the attendees present at the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. First of all, my name is Gail Sturdivant. I'm City Engineer, Deputy Public Works Director for City of Colorado Springs, and I also serve as the Chair of the Transportation Advisory Committee. Lynn?
Lan Rao, Acting Transit Services Manager.
Victoria Chavez, Transportation Planning Manager, El Paso County.
Jason Dosh, Town of Palmer Lake Public Works Supervisor.
John Leosatos, PPACG.
Danelle Miller, PPACG.
Jess Bechtel, PPACG.
I'll be right there. David Mentor, Transit Planning Supervisor, Mountain Metro Transit.
And we do have some guests. If any guests in the attendance would like to introduce themselves, you're welcome to. If not, you will only be forced to introduce yourself if you want to stand up and speak.
I think it's Phil and Casey with PPACG.
Okay.
And I assume that's Jared behind the pillar?
Yes, and Jared is being the pillar. Jared, if you could please help us with the introductions that are attending virtually, please.
Okay, we've got quite a few, so let's see if we don't miss anybody. Let's start as best we can. Ben Sheets, if you want to go first.
Ben Sheets, City Engineer, City of Fountain.
All right, Allison Burns.
Allison Burns, Mountain Metro Transit Grants Analyst.
Thank you. Aaron Busto.
This is Aaron Busto with Federal Highways.
Thank you. We got person who's just identified as CDOT. I don't know if there's a person behind that or if it's a group of people.
Kathleen Collins, Statewide and Regional Planning, CDOT HQ.
All right, we'll keep going. Darren Horsemeyer.
Yes, Darren Horsemeyer, Community Planner at Schriever Space Force Base.
Thank you. Jeff Guthrie.
Thank you. I hope you all can hear me. Region 2 Planner here at CDOT.
We can. Thank you. We'll go down to John Hall.
Yeah, John Hall, Engineer with CDOT Region 2 North Program, just representing the program. Thanks.
Thank you. William Keenan.
Good afternoon, William Keenan, FHWA Colorado Division.
Thank you. Matt Pettit.
Hello, Matt Pettit, CDOT Local Agency, Region 2. I'll be trying to fill in for Lachelle and answer any questions directed at her today.
That works. I think that's all the members and non-voting members, unless there's someone who I missed or someone else who wants to introduce themselves. Oh, Tim Roberts. I'm sorry, Tim.
Yes, Tim Roberts, City of Colorado Springs, Traffic Engineering.
Thank you.
Jared, I believe we also have Jill Gabler listening in today. She is our Regional Grant Navigator for PPACG.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be here. Thanks, Danelle.
So since we have both Jill and Darren on the line, I have to be careful when I say Wildcat because it could be either one of them.
You do. I agree.
Okay, great. So Jared, can you please confirm that we have a quorum of voting members today?
I believe we do. Danelle, do you mind backing me up on that too?
Yes, we do.
Great. Thank you very much. Hopefully everyone had the opportunity to review the agenda. I would be opening up if there's any recommendations for agenda modification or a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Victoria, move approval.
This is Jason. I'll second.
All right. I've got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The agenda is approved as published. Next item on the list is public comment or presentations for items that are not currently on the agenda. Jared, do we have anyone online that would like to make a comment?
So I'll ask anyone who's online who will wish to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature. In the meantime, we did not receive any advance requests for public comment from the email, and there's no one in the room has indicated that they want to do public comment. No one has raised their hand, so I think we're good to proceed.
Great, thank you. Anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment for items that are not on the agenda?
Say who's the greatest of all time? No? All right.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to approval of the minutes. The minutes from the April 20th, 2023 meeting were available in your packet. I hope that everyone had the opportunity to review them. If you have any comments or corrections, please speak up. If not, I would be looking for a motion to approve the minutes as published.
Move approval, Victoria?
This is Lan, second.
All right, great. We have a motion and a second for to approve the minutes as published. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the minutes are approved as published. Board of Directors report. John, either you or someone on your staff would like to do that today?
I'm trying to remember if there were any transportation items at the last board other than the tip policies and procedures, correct? So we had the tip policies and procedures go and was approved by the board. I believe that was the only transportation related item. We did spend a very long time in on conversation on the legislative session. So if anyone has any questions or wants to discuss it anymore, I think that's about it.
Any questions for John at this time? John, I am going to defer to ask questions at the end, but it's more related to what we're hearing and some federal funding concerns, but I'll wait till we get to later in the agenda to ask those questions.
Yeah, if it's about the like new stuff, we could probably do that under the IIJA, maybe. I don't know.
We'll add it on to that. How about that?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, perfect. Any questions for John? All right, let's move on to our action items. Action item 6A is discretionary fund redistribution. Danelle?
Yes, so we would like to bring to the TAC some awareness. El Paso County has returned just under $870,000 of federal carbon reduction program funding for redistribution. In addition to that, there's a couple of transit agencies that have been discussing potentially returning some of the federal MMOF money. And that is the American Rescue Plan Act money that has the deadlines associated with it. So it would need to be obligated by the end of next year and expended by the end of 2026. At this time, actually, I just got a letter about 10 minutes ago that Envita is returning $45,000 to us for redistribution. We also have potentially one other agency that may have some money to return, but they're working on their budgeting and their forecasting to see what that number would be. So at this point, we're just kind of bringing this to the TAC to see what you all would like to do. Would you like us to put out a notice of funding availability to try to get this on the books right away? We're also doing a roll forward coming up very quickly, as well as an amendment to kind of move the 2027 projects that are illustrative into the formalized tip. And I believe Jess will be talking a little bit about that shortly. But really today we're just looking for guidance. How would you like to proceed as the TAC?
Danielle, the other agency that was considering returning MMOF funding, did they give you an idea when they would know whether or not they could provide that information?
We're hoping they're kind of waiting on some contracting from CDOT. Laura, do you have a time frame at all? I think Laura Cruz, our mobility coordinator, has been in contact with them quite recently.
Yes, Gail, the situation with both agencies is they still have not received their contract. At least one has not received their contract for MMOF money from DTR yet. And so it was Silver Key Senior Services has not received that contract, which was a 3-year award that they should have received that contract back last summer. So essentially 3 years of expenditures or budgeted funds is now compressed into potentially 2 years. So they have asked for us to, if possible, wait to make a reallocation until they actually receive their contract from DTR, so that they can forecast and be able to see how much money, whether they will be able to spend it all or whether they may need to return some of their award. So it's kind of been a contracting issue. Not the agencies were ready to go, but as we know, there has been quite a large delay in those contracts out of DTR.
All right, thank you, Laura. I do have just a couple questions, or maybe one question. Did Silver Key do the initiation paperwork and they're waiting to hear a response back from DTR, or are they just waiting for a response for DTR and not reached out to initiate the project?
So they are waiting for they've received an award letter from DTR. What the holdup is they can't proceed with that award until the contract has been executed by CDOT. So all of these agencies through DTR with CDOT have either just in the past couple of weeks received their MMOF contract from last year's disbursement, or have not received it at all yet. So they cannot proceed with any expenditures until they actually have a signed contract by themselves and CDOT, and it's in CDOT's place. They're in their plate. Maybe Jeff or Kathleen can jump in.
Laura, I don't think maybe you understood my question.
Okay.
I know you're saying it's in CDOT's court, but I'm actually questioning whether or not it's really in CDOT's court or not. And Matt, maybe you can help in, because I know when we receive rewards, we actually need to initiate the process with CDOT, not necessarily wait for CDOT to reach out to us to initiate. So Matt, could you just let us know where it's at? And I'm really asking these questions because I'm wondering if Silver Key actually may need some help to be able to initiate their award and take that first step so they can receive those funds. So Matt, and it looks like Jeff has his hand up too, so maybe he's the right one.
I see Jeff raised his hand. I'm not sure how the transit process works, so I'll let him speak to that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. Or thank you, Matt. And Jeff, if you go ahead, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair, the ball is entirely in CDOT DTR's court right now. Silver Key has done what they need to do to get this going, so it is not for want of information from Silver Key.
Okay, thank you for verifying that. I really just wanted to make sure that they needed help, that they were going to get the help they needed. So if it's with CDOT, I appreciate that. So that was my question. I think we've resolved that. I think it would be more than reasonable, since they have the award, to wait to talk about any kind of reallocation of funds they might return once they work through this. So I think we should not discuss that. Danelle, do you know for the funds you mentioned for Avita, you said within the last few minutes you have received an email that they are returning the 45,000 or so in
Yes.
funding? Okay.
That's
So
correct.
you could send us a whole notice of funding availability based on those two pieces of information. Okay, so I think now the discussion is with the TAC members is, do we want to go ahead and open up the notice of funding opportunity, one, and two, if we open those applications, how long would we like to have that open? So Victoria, it looks like you are ready to speak.
I am. Since we had these awards and we had to return them, I would suggest that you open it up, open it quickly, open it for cost overruns as the first priority, and then new projects as the second priority, and do it as quickly as you can, as obviously I will not be reapplying for these since I'm returning them. So you don't have to wait on my very long process to get awards.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. Go ahead, John.
That being said, if I may, I do want to make sure that everyone's aware, and maybe I don't need to, but as far as going through the process again, what happened with El Paso County was beyond El Paso County's control at a staff level. And so therefore, they should not be excluded from participating in any process if they need to. I think it was very specific to these very specific project. And so if they did have something else, again, it was not at a staff level, everything was followed to the T. It was beyond that control, and they should not be excluded from applying for any future funds.
I appreciate that very much, and I thank you for acknowledging that I did everything I possibly could. However, I just don't feel right about doing it, so I will not be applying for them.
All right. Thank you, Victoria. Any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, this is Lan, I have a comment. We were awarded $590,000 in the initial round of funding allocation in MMOF ARP funds. We did receive the scope of work from CDOT, so we're in the review process. We would be happy if the funds, nobody else is going to apply, but we don't want to take the opportunity from other agencies. But if no one else will apply, we will be interested, and we're hoping to work with CDOT. I don't know if there is a possibility to include this additional funding with the existing scope of work to expedite the process, or drafting a new contract.
We do need to go through the award process first. I think that's a valid question to ask if you were to be awarded the funds. But that is a good point that we could consider if that was selected. Can I propose that we open up, once Danielle is able to send out this notice of funding opportunity, that we open up applications to be submitted within 2 weeks. Based on the number of applications, we can determine whether or not we need to have a workshop in advance with the goal of hopefully being able to make a recommendation for award next month. Does that seem reasonable? All right. So even though it says provide guidance, do you need us to do a motion then?
I don't think for this, we didn't need a motion, just that time frame and the guidance to go forward, and staff can fulfill that timeline.
Okay, great. I will go ahead, John.
I'm very sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to, one rule that we have, and I believe it's still a rule, sometimes the rules change and I don't know. But I think one rule we have is that no jurisdiction can ask for more funds than are available. I would ask that we could waive that for the MMOF. And so that way, if we do have folks returning MMOF for whatever reason, that way it's scalable and we can move forward. And let's say that we do have Silver Key come back after we've already done this process, and they come back and say, oh yeah, we're going to return 10,000. And we have to do a whole other process just for 10,000. So if you allow us to waive that rule, I don't think it needs to go anywhere, and it doesn't even have to be a vote. It could just be consensus. But if you're all cool with us waiving that rule for fiscal constraint, that allows us to just sort of mop this all up with one process, provided they don't return the money after we've already finished the process. Then we do have to go through another one.
Absolutely.
But if they give it to us back tomorrow, I don't have to come back again. If you give us that authority, then we'll just sort of move that way. Does that make sense?
John, I appreciate that, particularly with the scale of funds we're talking about. So it sounds like the direction is to have PPACG staff give us the notice of funding opportunity with a caveat that the MMOF amount may be adjusted in an upward direction. And if need be, that the applicants could scale their projects to meet that, and then give a 2-week timeline to return those applications for consideration. Does that seem reasonable? Concurrence, I see head nods in the room. Any concerns by folks that are attending virtually? All right, hearing none and seeing no hands, I think that's the direction for staff on that item. Does it seem reasonable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, and just one quick question. So again, Victoria had stated that cost overruns or existing projects have priorities.
Yes.
Those don't need to do a full application. They just need to let you know. If it's a brand new project, that would need an application. So just so everyone's clear, if you've got an existing project, you don't have to go through the big rigmarole. If you've got a brand new project, we do need the application.
Yep, there's a separate form for cost overruns. That's
Okay.
Great, and I think that's
less
actually already in accordance with our TIP guidelines.
Yes.
That Victoria was just reiterating, just to be clear for everyone. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I just want to make sure that any of the new members of the TAC get that form so that they have it, the simpler one to fill out.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. Moving on to item 6B, the fiscal year 25 to 29 tips schedule. Jess, please.
Yes, hello. So we are getting started on the process for the 25-29 fiscal year tip. So that'll go into effect next July, but it's a big process to get everything moving. So this should be quick and easy. It's basically just giving you guys the proposed schedule that we're looking at, doing all these steps in over the next year to get the new tip moving. So right now we're kind of working on cleaning up roll forwards, things like that, which will be part of a separate conversation we'll look at in the next memo. But if you guys were able to review in the memo, that outlines the schedule there. So I was just looking for guidance on that. If you guys see anything that looks out of sorts, or if this looks pretty agreeable.
Victoria.
Just a question. I don't have an issue with the schedule, just wondering when we would have the revenue estimates.
Sure. So I think we just got those. So those are coming out right now, along with the same time of, so all the allocations are going to come at the same time as roll forward discussion in our next project status meeting. So El Paso County, we're looking at getting scheduled with you currently, and we will have that number available for you.
Okay.
We'll get it to you beforehand.
So,
As long as we have it by that 6-1 number, I can hit the 721 number. But
Perfect.
if we happen to be delayed in those revenue estimates, that might. slow
Yep,
me down
right,
a
that was
little.
actually going to be a question I had as well, because I would have expected to see the revenue estimates to have the scheduled discussions.
We just got it ourselves, and so
Okay.
same thing. Yeah, we were kind of, it's a balance.
So would it be fair to say that assuming that we have the revenue estimates by before June 1st, that the schedule will be attainable? Yeah. Any comments for those attending virtually?
Yeah, I can send out that document allocation later
Okay.
this afternoon.
You have till June 1st.
Perfect.
But, right, well, and I do, in all seriousness, say that particularly if there's things you need to check with roll forward or just questioning the data that you've received.
Yep.
All right, if there's no other questions or comments on that, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the tip schedule.
Victoria, move approval.
This is Jason. I'll second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, great. Moving on to item 6C. Jess, you're going to be talking to us about the TIP Public Involvement Plan draft review.
Yes, so this goes hand in hand with working on the tip process, and so it's the tip PIP. And what this is basically just an internal guiding document, basically saying what rules, policies, procedures we're going to follow as staff with involving the public in the tip process and how we show which projects and things like that are selected. So the draft document was created and included for you to review. So again, just looking for any missing information, things you think it might need. Otherwise, we just wanted the tax sign off on it. Questions?
Any questions or comments for what was presented in your packet?
This is Lan. I have one question. I think according to the FTA, since we have the MOA, which is in progress, PPACG is handling basically the public comment process on behalf of transit. So I just want to make sure whatever language is needed, I believe we drafted those language and make sure those languages included for you posted.
John, is that needed in the tip PIP or the overarching big public participation?
No.
I don't know, so let
me double check on.
Yeah, go ahead and take a look at this, and if you think that there's language that's missing,
Okay.
then we'll
Let us know and
we'll bring it back and add it. We'll add it in and bring it back.
Okay,
But
I'll double check from, I believe it's a triennial review. The language is in there. I'll double check the language and.
Yeah, and it depends if it says that your public involvement plan needs to have certain language in it, then we can adjust this. But if it says when you put an ad in the paper, you need this phrase, that we don't need to adjust this to do. Just remind us what that is, and then when we put the ad in the paper, we'll have that that language specific in there.
Oh.
So whatever you need for compliance, we need for compliance, and we're happy to change it. We just don't know what we don't know, and we thought we covered everything. But if we didn't, we're happy to change it.
And you probably did. I'll double check as well.
The rules change so often, I can't keep up. So I would not assume that it's correct just because it's what we thought it was. So especially if you got a specific mention in your triennial review of, hey, next time you go out to the public, you need to make sure you do X. Well, then we have very specific direction. Just forward that to us. We'll make sure that what's covered and we'll make sure we'll do it.
Yep.
So not a problem.
Thank you.
John, I did want to mention, for the city of Colorado Springs, I think as all of you are aware, we do have a new mayor that will be coming in place on June 6th. I would not be surprised if we were asked to include some specific language or some specific outreach techniques that could go along for the public involvement plan. That being said, I don't think there's an issue with what you put together for the PIP as presented in here, but as you were just discussing on for transit, you know, if there's specific language or things that need to be included, we may also have some things that we'll be coming back and asking for as well.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that it's a working document, and so anytime we need to review and update, we can do it. We can do it every meeting if we need to. So
Yep.
yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah, and again, if it's something specific that the plan itself needs to get adopted, I think there's a 45-day public comment period because it's a little different. So we just have to make sure we follow the rules. So we'll grab everything that we need to do and then we'll go out with it. But that being said, actually for this one, did we decide it didn't need to go to the
Yes, it does.
45? Sorry, there's different things for different plans. I got confused. Old guy.
The overarching one.
So yeah, it just comes back here to the tip. So yeah, we'll change anything you need us to change.
Well, great. And my guess is, you know, you've got a pretty robust Title VI outreach program already and process. If we were asked to implement other strategies or outreach, I just wanted to mention that because we may be asked to do so.
Thank you.
All right, Victoria.
Well, then question, is
Yeah.
this an item that can be tabled for 2 months to get those all done? Or is it something you'd rather pass now and then amend later?
I think we'd rather pass it now and amend later if possible. But again, I have never been one to make you guys vote on anything you're uncomfortable moving forward with.
And then I'll just ask the two city people, what would you prefer?
I'm actually comfortable with the plan as written now. I think that anything we may be asked to do or is already covered more globally with what's written here in the PIP. So I don't see there's a need to hold this up. And I actually would rather have this in place, knowing this is our plan, given the TIP schedule for right now.
Perfect, then I'll move approval.
Okay, great.
This is Lan second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the motion passes. And we have an adopted PIP. Moving on to informational items, the fiscal year 23 to 27 major TIP amendment. Jess?
Yep, you get me again. All right. So this one is a little more tricky to explain, I guess. So this is in regards to the current TIP cycle. And so we're calling it the major amendment. And what that part of this is moving the roll forwards in. So 22 into 23, right? 23 to 24, sorry. 23 to 24. And then pulling in the illustrative years from 27 into the current tip so that it's always 4 years. So that's what this is doing. It's kind of closing in on either side of the tip. And again, we're going to work with you on those numbers during this project status process. So kind of 2 tip things going on at the same time. And this is cleaning up the current tip. Question?
I have one question for you, Jess. It looks like you've got 2 years in each of these 3 big steps that need to happen. And I guess that's based on how the meetings fall and the information's provided to the member governments. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. So tentative schedule, May, June, just because the way the project status meetings are falling, they're kind of happening the end of May, beginning of June. So El Paso County, City of Colorado Springs, those are all right at the beginning. So that was why they were that way. June, July, it'll come back in either June or July for your approval, depending on how we get that sorted out to make sure everything looks clean. Part of it too is we've been in discussion with CDOT on when exactly we want to move it within the system. And so we're kind of working those kinks out as well. But it's happening. We're just not certain on the exact split of that time frame.
Great. Thank you. I just want to make sure we
Sure.
have that clarification for the record. Any other questions or comments for Jess? All right. If there's no other question or comments, I'll be looking for a motion to, oh, I'm sorry, this was informational only, so.
Yep, just filling you in.
All right, let's move on to item 7B, which is the standing item for CDOT updates. So I'm not sure who wants to go first. Kathleen?
Sure. I have a couple of things to announce. Number one, I recognize that we need to review the MOA comments from Colorado Springs for the planning MOA. And so I'm going to be working on that this week. So I'll be getting back to you guys on that. In terms of the TC, the STIP passed for fiscal year 24 through 27. And that is on target to go through the process it needs to become effective in the July 1st horizon. In terms of staff, Anna Mariardi is now the HR director at CDOT. And those are the things I have to announce. And I realized that I was not the mystery CDOT person on the call because my name is up there. So I don't know if any of the region staff, and it looked like Jeff had jumped off. I don't know if he got back on in the interim, but if any other region staff have any reports, feel free to jump in.
And thank you, Kathleen. That the CDOT person was Michelle Regalado, if I'm saying that right. She was having microphone problems.
Okay. Thanks, John.
And I think that Tim just asked for clarification. She did not say a new director for CDOT. It was a new director for HR at CDOT.
That's correct. Human Resources, Anna
Okay.
Mariotti.
Okay.
Oh, Mariotti, not Moriarty, like where Sherlock Holmes would be.
Not Professor
Okay, all right.
Moriarty, no.
Okay, and it looks like John turned his camera on. Did you have something, an update from CDOT?
I don't have anything particular. We have a whole lot of projects obviously kicking off here. You know, the construction season is really just starting, especially up in the mountains and stuff. Unless anybody has any specific questions, I
Yeah.
don't have anything.
Yeah, I can't wait to start driving around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kidding, John.
Hey, John, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So next Tuesday, the 22nd or 23rd, whatever it is, CDOT's doing their cleanup. Is there anything that you need to coordinate with the folks that are on this call, or you just are going to be out there picking up trash?
Yeah, nothing I'm aware of. I know I think our maintenance has invited, or the different local agencies, some of the maintenance groups and stuff like that. And I believe you guys, some staff at PPACG is also joining us, but no, I haven't been tasked with any particular announcement on that, but yeah, we are doing it.
Okay. Yep. We'll see you out there.
Yep.
We'll be on 24 by Manitou.
All right. Matt, anything you want to add for the benefit of the group?
No, I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
And I think I'm missing other folks. Anyone else from CDOT? You have an update? All right. Hearing none. We have a standing item on IIJA updates and other funding opportunities. And I want to talk something about the other funding opportunities after you give us an update now.
Okay. A couple of small changes. The charging and fueling infrastructure grant program deadline has been extended. So that was supposed to close in May 30th, and I think it now closes 2 weeks later. If you're interested in applying for that or working on your grant application for that. Also through the state, the Charge Ahead Colorado grant is now open. If you have not received that and need information, please let us know. We'll get that to you. The big one that's open right now, of course, is the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. And I think John had a little bit he wanted to discuss on that.
Yes, thank you. So on the, hopefully, most of you, at least that are with jurisdictions. So I guess some of you didn't get this email, but I sent an email saying there is interest in doing a regional Safe Streets for All grant, excluding Colorado Springs. Not that we're excluding Colorado Springs because we don't love them, but rather that they're already very far along in a grant process, and it didn't make sense to slow them down to include them. So they're off by themselves. Additionally, they're kind of big and they sort of have their own issues. So again, it doesn't make sense to sort of slow them down with their issues at the same time that we're trying to look at everything else. But that being said, we did hear back. El Paso County has interest in participating and helping with the match, as well as outside of the MPO, Park County has indicated they would like to join, and they're happy to pay a portion of the match as well. So we've got the two counties that have sort of signed on for a regional Safe Streets for All grant application. And again, we would do the application internally here at PPACG, and the grant would be for 250,000, depending on how much match money we get. And it would be, the grant would be to actually put together what do they don't call it an implementation plan, they call it a safety action plan. So the grant would be to ask for a safety action plan. And the beauty of that is if you have your projects within the safety action plan, you're ahead of the game moving forward to get a safety grant down the line for actual implementation. So that being said, hopefully we'll have some of the other jurisdictions sign on. And because I don't believe it needs to be contiguous. So if we get enough of the jurisdictions say they want to do it and want to kick in, and a couple that don't, I think we can exclude the couple that don't and continue to move forward. So I think we have until July 10th, 8th, July 8th, I think. 10th. That's right. First time. I should never second guess myself. But anyway, so we've got a little bit of time, but basically to give us as staff time to write the grant application and get it in. We'll need to hear sooner than later, and we'll start reaching out to folks and kind of asking for a yay or nay. So if anyone's thinking about it or realize that they didn't get my email, let me know and we'll send it out again and fill you in. So anything else on that announcement? Hearing none?
All right, no, and then I think it's worthwhile, and I need to double check. I think the bridge infrastructure program, NOFO, should be out soon. And then Protect is out already. And then the MPDG in rural, mega raise in rural. I believe that one is open, as I recall. Or it's eminent to be open. Okay, this sounds good. So there are a couple other things that are out there. Okay. Any other thing on IAJ? Because then I want to talk about other funding opportunities. One of the things, unless there's anything related to that. One of the things that Len actually got from one of the national transit organizations, and then I actually heard on the national news this morning that if there's some consideration on a federal level that if you have unobligated ARPA funds, that they may be basically taking back the feds to help with some of the deficit issues that were being faced. I'm wondering if you've heard anything on that, or Federal Highways can weigh in on that. I know that they were trying to get some resolution on the debt ceiling this morning. Haven't been able to pay attention to anything at all today other than what's going on day to day. I don't know if anyone's heard anything or if there's any strategies or ideas we should be considering.
I was waiting to see if Aaron jumped on, but no, I have not heard anything. And I've been, was Laura, do you have something? I can't read my old.
She said the same thing about something, they're hearing the same thing about the area of aging, I believe is what she said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Yes.
So, go
sorry.
ahead.
Sorry, John. Yes, this is a very general blanket statement that has been across all programs that have received ARPA funding. If they have not been, this is still in the works. Don't know how it's going to go, but if the funds are not obligated, then that is a potential that it's going to be used to lower our overarching debt. So we're hearing that from the aging services side too.
Okay. All right. And then from the ARPA, whatever we're calling it, calculation, I don't believe much of that was going to transportation other than what the state of Colorado took, painted a different color and then moved it out again as MMOF, right? So I think our only exposure would be the MMOF dollars that we were talking about earlier. Am I correct?
I believe so. My only other concern is potentially some stimulus funds. They have the same deadlines as the ARPA funds, so I'm not sure if they would be included in that or not.
Okay.
Are you referring to like CARES? Is that in particular or others?
No, there was some transportation funds that that came in 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I think we spent that on the Powers Research Interchange.
We have some on 105.
105, is that still going? Okay, so we might
Yeah,
have
there's
some exposure there.
there's about 5 projects that have some of that funding that's not yet obligated.
Yeah, and I think Victoria and I both have direct ARPA funding that may not necessarily be obligated yet, but it's in the middle of developing projects. Matt, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Lachelle sent me a list of both some of the ARPA projects from the PPACG area as well as the PPK. Nothing's really jumping out as things that may not be obligated prior to that date. I know Junior and I have pretty good communication with all these projects that have that funding. So as of now, I'd say we're in good shape on all of our regional projects. But if there's any concerns, we'll reach out to the PMs directly.
Great, thank you for that. Again, I think our issue might be just more local agency than we can talk about afterwards. All right, thank you. And if you can hear anything, I'm sure if you could please pass that on to others. Go ahead, Victoria.
I'm just going to ask Danelle and John, when you have those meetings with our project managers, because I don't go to those. Once I get the money, I'm done with the project.
I am walking away.
I'm out. But yes, if you could bring that issue up to them during that meeting, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
And I am normally in those meetings with the project manager, so yeah, I should know as well, but anyway, we'll chat about that afterwards. Anything else related to IIJ or funding opportunities we need to chat about?
And I don't know if we gave Aaron enough time to weigh in if he wanted to, so.
No, you did not give me enough time. Every time somebody else would jump in.
I'm sorry.
Officially, we have not heard anything about this.
Okay.
So I can't contribute, sorry.
Well, thanks for that, Aaron. I guess no news might be good news, I'm hoping.
You know, you guys usually hear it first before we do, so.
I don't know if that's,
My eyes out.
yeah, I don't know that that's reassuring, but okay. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. All right. Any other funding topics? Otherwise, we can move on to the LRTP. All right. Standing item on LRTP, please.
Okay. And I have started putting together just a memo just to give you guys some details because there are so many moving pieces here. There's been some progress. Some of the status is still kind of the same as last month. Travel demand model is being worked on. We've also secured a consultant, although I don't believe the paperwork is officially signed yet, for the land use modeling effort. That will help generate the regional forecast along with all of the local jurisdictions. So there will be some communication soon about how we involve all of our local jurisdictions in creation of that regional forecast. We did have our internal kickoff meeting for the public involvement assistance piece with Kearns and West. They're going to start working on our public survey that we hope to do later this summer and into the fall perhaps, and also working on setting up our regional transportation plan advisory committee. You probably will be contacted about potential participation with that group as well. Our active transportation plan, that's one of our component plans that will feed into the LRTP, but is also its own standalone activity. We have an RFP out and hope to select a consultant either later this month or perhaps early next month. And then another portion of the LRTP, the transit plan and specialized human services plan. MMT is working on that. I don't know if you have any updates, Lan, that you could give us?
Yes, I do. We have completed the basically the RFP evaluation process, and our contracting folks are ready to announce the award and send out the non-award letter. We just reached out to CDOT today about where we are, because this would be a critical, that point that we discussed. Okay, what if we move along? We'll do parallel work towards in the same direction on both tracks, but this is the time that if we don't have the award, don't have the PCR forms, that those will be required by CDOT. Do we stop the plan? Are there options? Can we do an on-call and exercise maybe specialized plan down the road when the grant works out? So Allison just sent out an email to CDOT. I think Kathleen, you're on the email. It might be easier to have a discussion on that with CDOT.
Yes, this is Kathleen. I did receive the email. I am going into the office in person tomorrow, and I can also see if I can find out if you don't get a response from anyone between now and when I arrive at the office tomorrow. I'll see what I can do, because I don't really have a response myself, but I might be able to do some things in the background to try and find out what we can do to help the situation.
Thank you, Kathleen.
And Kathleen, I think at one point you said there was a 7-step checklist and we had knocked off the first 3 or 4. Do you know if we've made progress and we're down to the last 1 or 2, or are we still where we were before?
I think we're a little bit more advanced. We have the scope, and that was one of the steps, I believe. I would have to look at the list again, and then what I can do is push for information about those 7 steps and get back with you guys and when I find out what I can.
Okay. Well, feel free when you go into the office to knock over some furniture and say, we've waited long enough. This needs to get done. And if you think I'm mad, wait till John Liusatos gets in here, and then maybe that will make them move faster.
Sure. No, I do have to put in a word for DTR. They are working feverishly to get caught up on this massive backlog that they've been confronted with. There have been so many staff changes over the past year that they're really struggling, but it's on their radar. They are working really, really hard to get caught up. So I just want to say that about DTR, that they have a competent crew now, and they're all working hard to get these contracts out the door.
Okay. Thanks very much, Kathleen. And we do appreciate you looking out for us and trying to keep our issues towards the top of the stack. So it's appreciated.
Yeah, I do my best. So.
Yeah. Well, again, sometimes we don't tell you we appreciate you often enough, and I wanted to make sure that we did acknowledge, as cranky as we might get about some of these things, we know it's not you, and we do know you're doing your best for us. So it is appreciated.
Okay. And then also I noticed that Jeff Guthrie got back on the call. I don't know if he has been in communication with DTR on a level that I haven't, but just thought I'd reach out and see what Jeff may know.
Hey, thanks, Kathleen. I'm having a sidebar conversation right now, but last week here at CASTA, I ran into just a very few DTR personnel, since most of them are back in headquarters feverishly cranking out contracts. And same to your update, they're burning the midnight oil, so to speak.
Burning the midnight oil, 80s band? No?
Okay, so, and I think, Danielle, it's back over to you, unless there's things we want to talk more about the transit and the human services plan. I think you've got a couple more things you wanted to cover.
We do. So we did have a bit of a tech workshop regarding the scoring and the scoring process and how we pull forward the CMP into the LRTP and how we kind of do some improvements and some enhancements on that so that it will serve the LRTP process. And I think we're doing some work internally on that with Olson, who's our consultant, and we'll bring some more information back to tech about that. And then finally, the last thing is some existing condition and financial plan information is being compiled by our staff. We actually have an intern coming on at the beginning of June to help us with gathering long-range transportation or other plans and studies from the region, just helping us try to gather data, trying to read through that data. And then John had some discussion about the financial plan that he wanted to talk about as well.
Thank you. So the financial plan, and again, take what I say with a little bit of a grain of salt, because every time they come up with a new plan, they change something. So on more than one occasion, I've said, "Oh, well, this is the way the federal process is, and we have to do it this way." And someone will tap me on the shoulder and say, "No, they changed that under safety, or they changed that under iced tea, or they changed that under fast, or whatever." So, but my understanding, and I did read through all of this, is that as part of the long-range planning process, we're required to have a financial plan that accounts for the reasonably expected revenue sources that we would have available to program within the long-range plan out to 2050. So we have an appointment with CDOT, and thank you, Kathleen, for setting that up next Thursday to sort of look at all of the different funding sources and come out with an estimate out to 2050, and we will band those into 5-year bands. And so what we'll basically give you in sort of a call for projects for the long range plans is from 20 to 25, this is how much we have of each fund source. From 26 to 30 or whatever it is, this is how much we have. And then that way you guys can sort of look at what you already have in the existing long range plan and decide what additional projects you might want to bring into the process, or switch or move them around timing wise into the 5-year bands. The 5-year banding is, again, more of a creature of what is required of us of the state for the GHG compliance. So that way, instead of putting them all into the model in one glump, that would probably hurt our early compliance versus our late compliance. So by putting them in the 5-year bands, that allows Will to sort of only model what is reasonably expected to be included out to 2030, 2040, and then 2050, or whatever the years that we're required to by legislation. The other thing that we wanted to mention is there is a requirement that says that we need to account for maintenance and operations within our financial plan. In other words, we can't just say, here's all the money we're going to get, and we're going to take it all and build new projects with it. The expectation, and Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding, the expectation from the feds are that we need to adjust the available funds by removing the maintenance and operations over time, as well as making sure we account for a year of expenditures. I think in the past, it's been easier, instead of saying, hey, when are you going to build this project? Oh, well, now you need to add 3% per year of inflation. What we do is then it's easier if we just deflate the revenue estimates, and that way you can keep everything in current 2024 dollars. And so we do that on our end for year of expenditure. But the maintenance and operations is really what I wanted to talk about. In the past, more than one jurisdiction has said, look, we don't really take our money and run out and do something different with that. It's basically whatever money we get in HUTF, we turn right around and put it back into maintenance and operations, and just sort of balance us out. And we're like, fine, that's easy enough done. We get the HUTF calculation. We take an estimate out for 20 years or 25 years in this case, and then we just basically offset that as your maintenance and operations. So if you guys have very specific maintenance and operations numbers you want us to use, great. If you want to make it so that it balances your HUTF, that's great, because if that's what you're doing now, it's reasonably to expect that's what you would continue to do in the future. But the bottom line is, at some point, going to need maintenance and operations sort of numbers from everybody. The I don't want to say exceptions, but in addition, Brian Vituli kind of gave us a whole write-up of maintenance and operations and fare box for MMT. And I suspect maybe you actually did that behind the scenes and you handed that to Brian and Brian handed that to us. So we're going to ask you for that again. And that's going to be something sooner than later.
Yeah, so basically, what the work you're doing for the longer term projection is basically the same set of numbers we're going to include in the transit plan.
Yeah, yes.
I do have a question, because when we include all those funding sources, there is a local funds component. Are you gonna project PPRTA out?
Yes.
Okay.
We will project PPRTA out, but as far as like local contributions,
We'll
that
do that, yeah.
is up to you if you want to say, this is what's reasonable expect that we would continue to do from a local perspective out of general funds. We're not going to make any assumptions on that.
Right. And Lan, my idea on that is we take that maintenance of effort that we already put together. We actually do it for PPRTA to show that we have a continued baseline of general fund contributions because we could not supplant that effort with PPRTA funding. So you can take your MOE plus your PPRTA maintenance if you have any, and then I would that's what I would do, and then I would add 2C onto that. And that's how I would put that together.
And you anticipated my next question, which was the second thing that's in addition is we should talk about 2C. So if you've already have that baked into something and you feel comfortable sharing that with us, that we can put in the form.
Yeah, I feel like we could put something together based on the 23 numbers and what we have budgeted. What concerns me, my one component that concerns me is 2C has a sunset.
Yeah.
We do intend to ask voters to extend that, but that could be a significant amount of money or zero.
And I don't remember specifically, so if you guys remember reading it, feel free to correct me, but I think when we did the 2045 financial plan, we assumed PPRTA would continue. However, I don't believe we assumed the 2C would continue.
Okay,
So
and that's actually probably accurate. That's what you really need to do at this point in time because there's no way to predict that. I think that's what we'd have to do moving forward, and just do updates from there if necessary.
Right, and again, as long as whatever assumptions we make are documented, that's usually, again, and that we've documented why it's reasonably expected, so we could move forward. So whatever you guys are comfortable sharing with us, we can take and put in there. But as long as, again, transit and 2C are accounted for, however we account for them, as long as they are accounted for and documented, we should be fine. And again, then it just moves back to, don't be surprised as we reach out to the individual jurisdictions and say, what do you want to do for maintenance and operations? And if you're a relatively small city or town, you might just say, yeah, whatever we get from HUTF goes right back into the budget and we don't have a penny more. And then what we basically do is we take your HUTF calculation, we probably straight line it out till 2050, and we make that your maintenance and operation. Exactly the number that goes in is the exact number that goes out. The only thing I would ask is make sure you consider under SB 260, in addition to your normal HUTF, the HUTF will rise 8 cents over 4 years, because I think it's 2 cents a year. I can't remember if they went with 1 cent a year for 8 years or 2 cents for 8 years. Anyway, just sort of make sure that you sort of look at that and say, yeah, we're so behind on maintenance, we're going to just take that money and roll it back in. And if you guys are comfortable with that, then that's exactly what we'll put in the plan for you. If you want to say, oh, we're going to save some money for other projects for capital improvements, whatever you tell me, I'm going to take and I'll move over to the capital improvement. And then when it comes time to sort of do projects, then you kind of know you have extra money in the capital improvement sort of section, if that makes sense. Okay. Good.
Hey, John, if I'm hearing you correctly, the assumption for the expenditure side, you want it to be in 2024 dollars without including whatever assumption for inflation.
Yes, thereabouts. What we do is we shoot for a December of 24 adoption or January of 25. And so all of your cost estimates for all projects should be held constant in $2025. Then to account for a year of expenditure, right? So if you got a project that has $2025 and it's not really going to be done until 2040, right? Well, you're not going to be able to spend something in 2025 and buy exactly the same thing in 2040, right? We have to account for year of expenditure or inflation. The project's going to be more expensive. But instead of putting the burden on all of the jurisdictions to mess with that and figure out, 3% over year or 6% over year or whatever it is, I think we're going to meet with CDOT and hopefully, I think there's a Colorado construction index. And so we'll work with CDOT to get sort of an inflation rate. But instead of applying the inflation rate to all of your projects, we will just take that rate and apply a deflation to the funding amount. So if we've got 10 million, we'll only say there's 7 million available. And so that way that will account for the projects being a slightly higher. So that's an easier way of doing it instead of putting the burden on all of you guys. I try to keep the burden off you guys. I don't always succeed, but I try.
Any other questions for John on that item? Any other LRTP updates or questions? All right, moving on to item 8, member entity announcements. For the city of Colorado Springs, you heard my big announcement. We are going to have a new mayor on June 8th. I'm sorry, June 6th. I don't know that I have anything else at this point.
For transit, I mentioned we are doing a pretty big ZEP celebration this coming Thursday, May 25th. You're all invited. Hope to see you there. We'll have cake, maybe food. It's gonna be a fun event. We are also cake. Yes, cake.
He only comes for cookies.
Bus-shaped cake. We are also participating in this Zero Fare for Better Air program this year again in June, July, and August, and we just got information from CASTA that we will be awarded. So moving forward with that. Thank you.
Any announcements for folks online? All right, hearing none. Recommendations for items for future TAC meetings. Boy, it is quiet. Seeing none.
Almost too quiet.
It is almost too quiet. It's kind of scaring me.
Yeah.
All
When the comment
right.
stop is when they
You
attack.
get like 3 more seconds to speak up on either of those 2 items. Otherwise, I will be calling this meeting to an adjournment.
Just so everybody knows from a staff point of view, I think there's going to be a lot of items that are coming that reflate. Is that a word? I think I just made up a new word. Someone call Webster. That relate back to both the TIP and the long range plan. So I don't see us going out and doing a lot of extra stuff between those 2 efforts, as well as the active transportation plan, the freight plan, or excuse me, the freight study. We can't call it a plan because we're not going to have a prioritized list. What's that? And hopefully the safety grant. Hopefully everyone will be on board with that. So we're going to have to come back with you guys and beg your indulgence, but that's just the only, but to move those projects forward, we're going to need a lot of input from you guys and a lot of information. We will do everything we can to make it as painless as possible, but there will be pain. It's not like the dentist, right? They try, they say, but in the long run, it still hurts. So we'll do what we can.
I suspected there was going to be a lot of heavy lift items as we get into the LRTP, particularly just with Danelle doing the overview today. So we'll anticipate those. Otherwise, I'm going to call, knowing that future meetings are going to take a while, I'm going to call today's meeting adjourned at 1 hour and like 2 or 3 minutes in. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.